Although China's supersonic missile is in the news, China's plan to dominate the world with AI has more end-time implications. A couple of years ago, Vladimir Putin warned the Russians that the country that led in technologies using artificial intelligence will dominate the globe. Russia is now a minor player. The race seems to be mainly between the United States and China. But we know that in the near future, the Antichrist will wrest control of at least a majority of the world from these superpowers. How is he going to do it? Will AI dominance have something to do with that? Will AI support his mark of the beast? This is Last Days Breaking News with Nelson Walters, and today we're going to look at the end-time prophetic implications of the battle for AI supremacy and China's role in it. Now, right now, China plans to rule the world by 2030 by using AI. They've stated as much. And the USA's first ever chief software officer abruptly quit earlier this month because he thinks the Chinese are right. Nicholas Chilane, former CSO of the United States Air Force and Space Force, said that the USA has no competing fighting chance against the Chinese when it comes to cyber warfare and artificial intelligence, and that cyber defenses at many government agencies are at a, quote, kindergarten level. Chilane said that Beijing is heading for global dominance because its advances in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cyber capabilities are just outpacing everybody else. Chinese companies are obliged to work with Beijing and are making massive investments in AI without regard to ethics, while the Western democracies in Europe and the United States are slow tracking their progress to assure racial and social impacts of AI are equitable. Regulation, not innovation, were the primary focus of the Western nations. And as a Christian, I'm kind of glad that someone is watching out for the ethical implication of what stands to potentially be the most dehumanizing and enslaving technologic development in the history of mankind. And that's AI. Eric Bernschofson, director of the MIT Initiative on Digital Economy, says, quote, "This is a moment of choice and opportunity. It could be the best 10 years ahead of us that we have ever had in human history, or one of the worst because we have more power than we've ever had before." And absolute power corrupts absolutely. As a Christian, I realize that things coming from man are not going to make this the best 10 years. So it looks like Eric's other option, the worst 10 years in human history, are almost upon us. So, as those interested in the end times, we need to examine this issue very closely. And although the Western powers' careful advances in this area are laudable, from a competitive standpoint, I think we all realize it's absolute folly. A growing number of leaders in the West are worried about the U.S. falling behind in the race for AI supremacy. Earlier this year, the National Security Commission on AI, a project chaired by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, also boldly declared that China is poised to surpass the U.S. as the world's AI superpower. In a statement by Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, Stephen Hawking, among thousands of scientists, the commission said AI technology has reached a point where the deployment of such systems is practically, if not legally, feasible within years, not decades, and the stakes are high. Autonomous weapons have been described as the third revolution in warfare after gunpowder and nuclear arms. End of quote. It seems the genie is already out of the bottle in terms of AI. China has little or no ethical boundaries, so autonomous weapons, data collection, full-time surveillance, and mind control are the applications that the next generation of AI will enable. So without putting the proper guardrails in place, this world-changing technology could lead to the kind of totalitarian control that we see in the book of Revelation. If you look at present-day China, you can already see the future of a more AI-centric society and what it might look like. China's surveillance and social credit score systems, like millions of cameras on the street with bank accounts, and social media platforms to score an individual on how well they conform to the state's mandates. China is also a world leader in cyber attacks on other nations' businesses, and their military is at least equal with the Western powers in terms of AI-developed weapons, but they're going to soon surpass them. One of the reasons is that China's government, businesses, and military all cooperate and share technology rather than competing with each other like we do in the West. China has been more aggressive at implementing AI breakthroughs thanks in part to a lack of oversight that's let their tech companies kind of like leapfrog the competition and dominate entire industries. For instance, WeChat and its parent company, Tencent, are perfect examples of this. On WeChat, privacy does not seem to be a priority, but the vast quantities of data that the app can collect are certainly helpful for training their AI systems. It's almost as if Amazon acquired Facebook, Visa, MasterCard, all at the same time. Imagine power. The Chinese military have been pursuing significant investments in robotics, drone swarming, and other applications of AI and machine learning. Prominent are their unmanned tanks, underwater craft, and missiles. Chinese advances in autonomy and AI-enabled weapons could easily impact the military balance, both in real conflict, that's one thing, and as a threat to be used as leverage. Did you think the timing of the hypersonic missile test in China was accidental? One of the first questions President Joe Biden of the USA was asked was how this test would impact the USA's decision to defend or not defend Taiwan if it was invaded by China. So they were leveraging that test to scare people. In striving to acquire a technological advantage, the Chinese military could rush to deploy weapons systems that are unsafe, untested, or unreliable under actual combat conditions, something the Western powers might not be willing to do. China might also let some of the USA's enemies test these technologies by giving terrorists and terrorist states prototypes of these weapons. Just think about that. China's new close ties with the Taliban and Iran come to mind immediately. These things threaten democratic values and interests while accelerating the proliferation of these capabilities to these non-state actors. So we really don't have to wonder how the Antichrist might begin to acquire some of these technologies. It appears to this channel that China may be a very willing salesperson to a madman, maybe in trades for oil or natural resources. Oddly, China is Israel's second biggest trading partner and Saudi Arabia's biggest trading partner. So the Chinese may feed both sides of any Middle East conflict. So the threat from China is not only what they may use in a conflict against the Western democracies, but in our opinion, a bigger threat is what they will sell or trade for energy and resources, arming the most dangerous part of the globe and bunches of bad actors with advanced technology. Let's turn to what the Bible says about the potential use of AI by the beast empire. Of course, the most obvious is the mark of the beast system that controls buying and selling on at least a large, regional, if not a global basis. As we discussed in this previous video, link is down in the description, to do this with any level of surety will require digital currency and an AI control system. China is already the most advanced digital currency in the world and is going to roll it out shortly. Might the beast use China's currency in their mark of the beast system rather than create their own? You know, it's a real possibility. The second item from Revelation 13 that might have an AI application is the so-called image of the beast. We read that the false prophet enables this image to achieve the following things. Quote, the second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. In Daniel 7, we also read the little horn, or Antichrist, has eyes, quote, like a man. That means his eyes aren't human. If they're like a man's eyes, then they're non-human eyes. All these things, non-human eyes, giving breath and speech to an image, and the power to kill those who don't worship it, may be something artificial, like a robot, or more likely a cyborg, which is half human and half machine. And in this previous video, we talked about how the image of the beast may be linking human minds to a supercomputer. Again, the link is down in the description. Revelation 13 also tells us the Antichrist is worshipped because of his military might. They worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" Yet, we read in Daniel 11 that the Antichrist arises from a small people. Thus, his military power is not based on numerical forces. Might technology be part of the reason he succeeds militarily? Well, perhaps. Although this ministry believes the scorpion locusts of the fifth trumpet in Revelation 9 are demons, their appearance certainly seems like they could be autonomous weapons, as does the army of 200 million that pour out fire and brimstone at the sixth trumpet. Although, again, our ministry believes these are the angels of God pouring out God's wrath, not machines. But we bring these things up because, well, we could be mistaken. Then there is the issue of how the beast destroys Mystery Babylon. In Revelation 17, we're told that initially, Mystery Babylon's empire rides the beast, or in other words, it controls or rules over the beast. Yet, later in the chapter, we're told the beast turns on Mystery Babylon and burns its body with fire. How does this turnaround happen? How does someone who is being controlled by a bigger, more powerful force get the weapons to do that? Now, in this previous video, we hypothesized that Mystery Babylon is a new world-dominating government led by the UN and governed by thought leaders who are mostly global billionaires. So it is primarily a European-centered empire. Who supplies the beast to enable it to burn this European empire? Our guess is China. Maybe this is how the beast acquires much of its military hardware. That's a possibility. Maybe China is trying to destroy Mystery Babylon and uses the beast as its proxy. It's something to think about. Then at the sixth bowl, the Euphrates River dries up and the kings of the east cross it to come to the Battle of Armageddon. These kings of the east are likely China. And this is the point where we see them actually enter the picture personally in the book of Revelation. But prior to this, as we said, this channel sees them providing the Antichrist with digital currency, AI, and AI-developed war materials, thereby supplying his great tribulation. Now, if you want to learn more about what the Bible and especially the book of Daniel says about the Antichrist, how he rises to power, his conquests of deception that cause him to acquire his empire, then click right here to keep watching and see the Antichrist explained in detail by the Bible. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.